Okay, people. So what is it? June 9th? June 8th or June 9th? I'm sitting here and I'm thinking before my day starts, right? Having a coffee with my sugar. About the stories that are going to be told, that are told now in terms of people and their lives, and how in 20 years it's, they're going to be forgotten. And I was thinking about those forgotten stories, and how my channel is, I guess they call it shadow banned, right? And how I cannot retain an audience because I don't turn the computer off and switch up the screen every minute and a half, right? Because they've done studies on rapid eye movement that if you like watching TV, right? That's why a lot of scenes switch every 1.5 to 3 minutes or whatever it is, because it does something to the brain, right? It captures your attention, but it also alters the brain. So, before I start my day and I'm thinking about stories, right? Long forgotten stories. And I'm been lately talking about the housing market, obviously, right? Because it's, it's a frightening issue, people. It's frightening to know that there's nowhere I can go that's affordable in terms of when I leave this house. And like I said, I've been trapped for a long time. But, as I'm talking about these houses, I'm thinking about the little house over there. And I'm like, okay, well, what about Wesley's story? Wesley was the one. And I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, I'm going to tell you how I got to this video, right? And I'm like, well, Wesley's stories, is important just as much as Uncle John's story is important, and Shimei's story, and so on, right? And that's because I don't know if you call it an irony or if it's I don't know. But the thing is, Wesley was homeless. How I met Wesley was living in a tent behind the shed at the little house. And that's when that mutiny was going on, right? That's when the mutiny was going on, and I wasn't going in and out of the house for a couple of months because of the mutiny. Reminding everybody that I'd be back after they leave. So when it came time to go back after those people left, I happened to find Wesley with Tanya and their dog in behind the shed with the tent. And that's basically how they were living for a couple of months. So when I showed up, I said, okay, well, it's time to start clearing out the premises, right? Because the landlord wants to get on with building his house. So long story short, Wesley and Tanya actually took on the role of caretakers, right, to ensure that people were vacating to the best of their ability. As every now and then I'd come through and, right, and, I had to play the bully one day. I kicked in the door. I said, that's it. Gotta go. So in the meantime, Wesley was just kind of like, they were tidying up the yard, and, they were sending people away. Because you have to remember that house became like a Grand Central Station for half of the homeless people in Surrey. Not to mention just the people that came by to visit that were friends. Right? And this was before it was taken over under a mutiny. People would go to that house just to get out of the cold, people. Or to just sleep for a while, or take a shower. And I was okay with that because these people walk up and down my street when I'm up in the yard. And, you know, I don't want to say friendships with them because I'm not really their friend and they're not really my friend. They're acquaintances, but it's almost like a kinship. I'm probably using the word wrong, but for me, it's like it touches on a human level, right? That's what I mean by kinship, right? I wish I could do more. I've tried to do more, right? But there's only so much that I can do under this crisis, because it's a crisis, people. So anyway, I don't want to distract, right? So for about a month or so, that was going on, and Wesley basically took on that leadership role, right? And as I was looking for houses to house 4 people that hadn't moved on yet. So I'm looking for houses, people, and I'm getting turned away, and I'm getting turned away, and I'm getting turned away. You know, I'm showing up, looking at the houses. I'm giving them the references, right? No, I'm telling them to phone the landlord. I've got nothing to hide, people. Nothing. And so, you know, as it gets closer to the axe, basically, you know they have to leave, right? So eventually it just got down to Tanya and Wesley. And, you know, the thing about empty houses is they're an invitation for anybody in the neighborhood that scraps metal to jump the house, right? So they kept that. I'm not saying that the copper in the house didn't get raided. It did, but it got raided as the people were moving out by the people who lived there with their friends. That's how it got raided. Not because the house was empty and somebody jumped the house and took, you know, coppered it, right? There was a bit of copper inside, and the landlord and I, we allowed them to copper what they could copper. But a large portion of it underneath the house had already been taken out by the people that, you know, were running the mutiny and their friends, you know. And people were like bitching on about it because, oh, you know, you're getting ripped off. You're getting $50, you know, pipe here gone, and another $100, another pipe gone, right? You know, like, you know, what are you going to do about it? And I'm like, well, what can I do about it? So, but Wesley kept some order in there as I'm looking with Tanya for a house. Even Tanya came with me. So anyway, and of course, you know, it's just, that's when I met this rich Punjabi who told me to go out and look for a house and that he would buy it and that I could work on the nonprofit. This is a true story, people. I don't know if I ever told you this story. And I'm like, okay, really? And he goes, yeah, no, really. So because on the board of directors to the foundation that I work on have Punjabi people on there, I'm like, okay, this man's a Punjabi, you know, Punjabi's a rich community, right? I have board directors that are Punjabi. So if this rich Punjabi man is serious and says, oh, go find me some property and I'll buy it because I'm into developing, right? In other words, I'll buy it. You can live in it or work on your program for 1 to 3, 4, 5 years and then be known that it's going to be tore down and you got to move on. Well, if I can get a property for 3 years and build on program development in terms of providing stability, right? Because it's not just getting the housing. You need stability built in around that housing. You're not going to get it in 1 year. That's why that place was so hard to establish, because everybody knew it was off the cliff sooner or later. So, you know, just life is a bang, do what you want for the moment and don't worry about the future because it's coming like this anyway. So, you know, I kind of went off on the wrong foot, but at least we had a start, right? So okay, so I phone up this other board director, right? I phone up a board director. I say, hey, you know, I met this rich Punjabi man. He's telling me that, you know, da-dee-dee-da, like, do you know him? Like, what should I do? And, you know, and I'm going to try it. You know, it doesn't hurt to gather up something and forward it to him, and, you know, and thank your lucky stars if it comes through, right? Okay, so I go on the internet, people. I Google houses in the local area. You know, I think I'm looking for what he wants. But, you know, I wasn't trying to be a realtor. I wasn't trying to make a profit for myself. So of course I handed over like 3 or 4 different houses, but they were listed through realtors, so he would have had to pay the realtor's cost, right? And I also listed 1.5 or 1.4 acres of land not too far from here with the actual river going through it for $1 million, right? It was $999,000. So, you know, I hand over both, I photocopy, I make sure this rich Punjabi man gets this information. You know, I call him up, I told him, hey, you know, you said, right? Well, here's my choices, right? I forward that information to the board director. He gets all excited about the land and says he wants to buy the land for himself. I don't know if he's bought it yet, right? But, you know, that amount of land for that amount of money with the creek going by, I mean, I wanted to turn it into a nature park, people. So I wrote it down. This is where we need to have a nature park with you know, some chickens and a few peacocks and, you know, and you know, walnut trees growing and, you know, that kind of thing, right? Pony, you know? And, I don't know, it's just, everything went silent. Everything just went silent. So in the meantime, you know, Wesley and Tanya, because the other 2 now have moved on, so I'm now left with 2, right? As Wesley is keeping an eye on the house, people, for this landlord. And by this time, it's all boarded up as we're taking out windows, right? Because if Wesley hadn't been around, that place would have been infiltrated to be jumped over and over again as the scrappers, the metal scrappers in the neighborhood, you know, whether they're running in a group or whether they're running as lone wolves, you know, it's just, yeah. And to keep the squatters out too, right? Because that's another thing. Empty house, the squatters move in, right? So, you know, nothing's coming. You know, I have some rich Punjabi man tease me, right? You know, I have the board director saying, oh yeah, I know him. Yeah, he's a good guy. And then all of a sudden everything goes silent. You know, and you have to remember, people, I have been waiting. Like I started working on this nonprofit in 1999, basically because I used to be a computer Rambo sitting up in Canada with a good life, right? With a strong union, public union sector that I was taking this province into a place where people such as myself with, you know, being in that box, even at an early age, could be creative and could break out of it and be productive in life. That was my thing when I started the nonprofit. And then by 2000, I registered the trademark. And then by 2001, I was finally done with the actual society itself, with the constitution and the bylaws and all this other crap, right? Well, we'll just take it from 2000. From 2000, that's 19 years, people. From the year 2000, I have been living in a Punjabi community for 19 years. And basically, I'm telling you, I have been waiting for the Punjabi community to stand up to the plate for the last 19 fucking years, and they haven't done it yet. And this story is Wesley's story to remind the community that these people that they are taking advantage of by not helping them as they amass great wealth for themselves are the people like Wesley that protected the landlord's house to keep the riff-raff out, even though if you were to look at Wesley, you would call him riff-raff. And the landlord, he depended upon Wesley to do that for him. But because there's so much violence in the community and it's out of control and people are desperate, frightened, and in psychoses from being overstimulated and abused socially from multiple sectors, Wesley knew he had nowhere to go. He was in panic mode, right? And not only was he in panic mode, but 400 other people in just a freaking 10-block radius is in panic mode. Well, the landlord, is oblivious because all he's thinking about is paying off his mortgage. And the only way he can do that is build another monster home because that's his second income. Right? He uses it not to live. He uses it to pay off his mortgage because he told me. He's a businessman. Okay, fair enough. So, now we're at the very bitter end of it's time to go. You got another couple more days. Everybody knows you're here, but nobody's talking about it. But it's time to go. So, he's up 15, 20 blocks away at a gas station, nowhere near the little house. But that's where his shirt is hanging. That's where his job was. And this is the point of this video. That is where his job was. That landlord, without openly saying, I'm employing you to look after this house so that we can keep the riff-raff out until such time the drywall guys can come in and start taking out the drywall. Right? And I don't have to deal with 15 squatters in there. Wesley's at the gas station, and you have to remember the tension in the neighborhood because there's no housing. It's beyond, it's an addiction. No, it's because there's no housing. And he gets beat up by about 5 thugs in broad daylight in the gas station. Anyway, he got booted in the head, and God knows what else they did to him, but not enough to severely injure him right then and there. So he got his ass up and he ran. And do you know where he ran to, people? He ran to the little house. He ran to the little house. He went in there. I guess his girlfriend caught up with him, and I guess he did a little bit of drugs or something because he was an addict, but his head was pounding so bad, he puked everything. His head was just getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And then he said, because she's saying, go to the hospital, go. And no. And finally he said, okay, we'll go. So they take him to the hospital. He gets to the hospital. His buddies show up, right? So he's got a group of buddies now because everybody's on the phone, right? Because we're family. We're like kinship around here, right? It's not family, but it's like a kinship, right? We're all part of one human race, right? So apparently, whatever they did to him when they beat him up, it was so bad that within a few hours of arriving at the hospital, his brain did something, and they put him on machines, and they ended up disconnecting the machines because something happened to his brain because they kicked him so hard and beat him so hard in the brain. Right? That's what happened. But before that happened, he went home because that was the only home that he had, even though he had to leave in another 2-3 days, and he was facing complete homelessness, and he came in being homeless, and it was tearing him apart, because there's more to the story. Because in this house over here, right, was somewhat similar to what was going on in my house in terms of, for what people say in the neighborhood, oh, you know, it was just a shack. Yeah, it was just a shack, people, but it also took a lot of people off the street and gave them some time to sleep, to take a shower, to actually have a decent meal, you know, to have somebody talk to that could relate with them, you know, just a safe place to be, even if it was for a short period of time, despite all its problems, just like my little house, right? And he stood one time over on the fence, right? Because, you know, those days, right, it was going back and forth, right? Because he knew these people, right? The two houses would go back and forth. Apparently there was some kind of turf war going on, but my little house kind of quelled that turf house. People were kind of like, you know, they weren't like, oh, hey, you know, everything's great now. But they were like, haven't you noticed, like, nobody's fighting? Normally, if you bring the two groups together, they fight, but nobody's really fighting. Everybody's getting along despite their differences. I was able to do that even for a little while. So some of that was between the two houses, right? So as this one was clearing out, Wesley once in a while would go over here because he'd borrow tools to do whatever he was doing over there, right? And because he was allowed to take out wires and stuff, right? We were giving him the wires, whatever he could salvage. That's why all that wire was piling up, because we the landlord and I, we gave Wesley and Tanya the wire, right? For helping us, even though we were helping them, right? So, but the thing is, the landlord is not facing homelessness, right? The landlord is facing a nest egg in terms of he's building wealth for his family, right? By any means necessary, regardless of the cost, even if it's a human cost. Because in his mind, he's Sikh, right? Now, I'm not putting him down, but, you know, it's time to talk about these things, people, seriously, because what, I'm jumping with it, but I'm sitting here and I'm like, you know, Wesley went home knowing that he was being pushed out into the streets, even though he was giving his all to help an individual that at the end of the day that was forcing him out into the streets, because the individual themselves as a collective didn't want to house Wesley anywhere else. But because it was an individual we were dealing with, that individual basically could say, well, as a Sikh man, I've done my job. I allowed these people to live here for 11 months, knowing that they had to leave anyway, because I'm a businessman. I need to build my house. So pay me my rent so I can kick you out. But yet you can thank me for allowing your dirty ass to live in my dirty house, because it had huge plumbing problems that never got fixed, people. Until such time I don't need your petty money no more, and you can go and find your merry way. But they don't see it like that, because they allowed those people to live there for those 11 months, 10 months, 8 months, or whatever it was, within the year, right? And that was duty to God. But they don't have a God. You see, that's the thing. They don't have a God. And this is why I'm bringing you to this video. And I'm like, well, gee, that's, you know, I'm thinking, well, Wesley went to that house, he died. I mean, he went to that house. That was his home. He went home before he died. That's what happened, people. Wesley went home before he died. So, in essence, like, somebody died in that house, just like somebody died in my house. Shimei actually died in the house. So whoever moves into this house has to know that Shimei, there's a little piece of Shimei spirit, and even Uncle John, because he kind of died in this house too, in this house. So Wesley went home to his house, and even though he hadn't died there, if he would have stayed there, he would have died. But he went to the hospital. The point is he went home, and now there's this big monster house being built upon a place where somebody had died, basically, doing a service for the one building the house. And yes, the one that's building the house did the service for Wesley by allowing Wesley to stay the extra 3-4 weeks so that we could find another house. But because there's so much discrimination in the community based on race, based on religion, based on sexism, based on classism, there is no other house. And then when you meet a rich man that wants to brag about his money, and you confirm with another well-to-do off man that this guy ain't shitting you, right? And you hear that he's not. But yet he plays you for a fucking fool, makes you wait another 19 years, because it's been 19 years I have been waiting for the Punjabi community to stand up to the plate, and they have yet to do it. But yet Wesley died at that little house, and this will be stories lost, forgotten about at some point, right? And that's why they do it. That's why people do it, because they know the story will be forgotten about. Time is the best weapon. You know, it's like stupid. So it's like, it dawned on me. What kind crosses do Sikh people carry? Punjabi Sikh. They go hand in hand, right? That's what their Vaisakhi festivals are all about. Those are all Punjabis. They come from somewhere in the middle of India, from a particular area, and they come here. But they don't carry crosses, because that's not their religion, and this is why I'm doing this video. Because how can you ask them what kind of cross do they bear for taking advantage of homeless people? And they give their all to the bitter fucking end, and they lose their life over it, and then their stories become forgotten. I don't think Wesley's story should be forgotten because, you know, oh my God, like I don't know. I don't know. I just don't fucking know. You know how many times I asked this board director to take this freaking nonprofit over and become the fucking president? So many times. If you know the people that are the movers and shakers in this province that can bring in some freaking social programs that actually work for the people and not just exploit the people, as you profess to do it through your religion, because as a Sikh person, you live by a strict rule guidebook, even though we know that your kind is thoroughly 100% corrupted in many, many ways, just like every other religious group in British Columbia, Canada. But if you all want to sit up there with your thumbs up your ass and think that people don't fucking realize what's going on around here, well, I'm just being I was exaggerating a little bit there, people. Like, I'm just, like, but it's true. I say to this board director, I can't do it. I can't communicate with your people. I can't. When I tried, I was turned away with Gari, that little girl, with the man that actually took the foundation to the temple. We went into the room where all the men sit. I gave him the envelope with Wally, my ex-landlord, who believed in what I did, and they turned us away. And they turned us away for a man that they were harboring in their temple, as he was, you know, they wanted to deport him back. But because he had a heart attack or something like that, he became paralyzed. And the Punjabi community, I lived it, people. They rallied around him and was harboring him for a very long time. I don't know what happened to him. wouldn't allow, what do you call that? You know, the agency that deports people back to wherever they come from. They wouldn't allow them in on the temple. They protected him. They gave him 24-hour medical services, brought in everything they needed to bring. That's what all that fundraising was for. And they turned me away with a little girl that came from a different part of freaking India. Because she came from Tamil and not Punjab. They didn't want anything to do with her. And they sure in the hell weren't interested in the foundation. Because it's been fucking 19 years. Right? And I'm wondering what kind of crosses that they bear. But they don't bear crosses because they don't believe in crosses. I think their ideology is if you donate 11 months of your time, knowing that you're just going to make a profit anyway, so you can't really consider it a donation if you want to think about it, and then you turn a blind eye to what's around you, right? Because you know it's just a matter of time before the streets are swept and everything's dead and gone, right? And that the stories will be buried, right? And will be lost and forgotten. Where's the incentive for change? There is none. There is none. So I'm like a lump on the log with this nonprofit. I can't do shit. I got the Catholics attacking me because of what they did to John. The Catholic community is never going to want to admit what kind of people are in their freaking congregation when you look at the Eleanors in the world. Right? That was a Catholic that did what they did to Uncle John. So nobody's in no position to be throwing fucking stones around here. Right? But if one rich man says he can do something, and another man says, hey, I know he can, and still nothing fucking happens, and people are just dying off like freaking flies, including your own daughter, because of the apathy hidden under the guise of, well, not crosses, that's for sure. Ain't nobody carrying no fucking crosses out here. Wesley did, though. Wesley had a huge cross on his back. And that's a story that should never be forgotten about. I didn't want to see Wesley get beat up and die. Knowing that he came to my house before he died. He went home, people. His last home. Because that was the last home that the community was willing to give him. So did those thugs do Wesley a favor? You know, sometimes I sit here and I think, gee, Shimei, you're gone now. You know, I don't know. There's not too many good things about it, but maybe you saved yourself a lot of fucking stress. You used to play beautiful music. Maybe life was just too painful for you. All right? Maybe God did you a favor. So did those thugs do Wesley a favor? Knowing that once Wesley left that house, he was going to be out there on the streets with them? Just one less thug on the streets as another monster home gets built? With a Hummer driving by? And the cops with their sirens going in the opposite fucking direction? They're not chasing the criminals. They're going in the opposite fucking direction. You can decipher this for however you fucking want to decipher it. How about that?